Another draft physics video production with the usual amount of enthusiasm, interaction with people. Anyway, so the mission here is just to try to provide a diagram, 2 plus 2 plus 2, explain what the physics is and how a model, simple model, can explain the experiments we see and explain why what happens. And that's the only obligation. There's this gravity thing happening, needs an explanation. We kind of know that there's this transmission of information. Somehow I can see, and I'm using a mechanism to see with little bits of something, wave nonsense or whatever. And you're just trying to explain the phenomenon. Why do I see what I see? And why do things move the way they move? And not that complicated. And the way the game is supposed to be played, the argument to be made logically in examining these competing theories, is that the theory has to be complete. It has to be non-contradictory. That is, it can't say it did two things at the same time, like wave particle nonsense. Can't contradict itself. And so it has to be complete. It has to cover it all. Has to not have paradoxes in it. And it has to be simple. Simple one wins. And in my opinion, I've performed all of those tasks. I've done what's called juggling. I've sort of videotaped it. I juggled 21 things, did it. It's videotape. It's here. Simple. Explained. And I've done my job, essentially. Now, the only argument to be made is you're going to acknowledge that's what took place. Yes, that's what took place. There's a competing model that explains it more completely. No virtual photons, no bent space, no extra dimensions, no entanglement, no paradoxical nonsense, no nonsense about two instantaneous events not being instantaneous, no bullshit. So simple, yes, wins by a long shot. Complete wins by a long shot. And it doesn't. There's no paradoxes anywhere. It doesn't create any nonsense about twins and which one traveled and which one didn't and which one gets older and which one doesn't, because everything's supposed to be some sort of stupid relativity, which it isn't, which doesn't work as a theory. So I win. I did my job, and the only job to do now is just to ridicule the judges, because they obviously are crooks and thieves and bums, because they're not acknowledging the obvious. They're not acknowledging what is plainly in your face, and instead they're playing little word games and blah 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 blah. So yeah, that's just a long way of saying fuck you. Your bullshit excuses for clinging to your religions. Ugh, nonsense. Really, you want it to, this isn't about the scientific or logical argument. This is about performance art. If he wears a tuxedo and is smoking the right cigar or some other kind of bullshit, okay, then you'll listen. If he's sitting inside a garbage can and he points out to you, there's a booger hanging out of your nose. Somehow it didn't happen, because the wrong person told you so. It's just so stupid. Anyway. So all you're really saying is that no, we don't need to be persuaded by logical arguments and reasoning. You have to persuade us with a Broadway production. Blah 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 blah. Fuck you. So as a music scientist, so you're just playing with yourself, just right out, and you're just saying, I just don't care about being reasonable at all. I'm just going to play little sissy games. There's no such thing as a music scientist, okay? All of this stuff is physics. Stuff moves because of physics. Sound travels through the substance of the atmosphere based on rules that are physics. Now, you want to talk about why there's such a thing called music? Okay, that's not really sound, right? It's just because music is some sort of oh, the sound has to have a certain character. It has to do a certain thing. That's a psychological subject, okay? There's no music scientist. You can either be a head shrinker and you can figure out, well, why do human beings give a fuck about patterns in music? Well, then it becomes an evolutionary science, right? Why do birds bother with that nonsense? Why do howler monkeys howl? You can come up with lots of explanations for why we, as humans, have the faculty of hearing in the first place. It's convenient information. And clearly, why should some sounds, just like some sights, are pleasing and some are unpleasing? And then you can just go into an argument about symmetry and the fact that our brains are designed to recognize patterns, the pattern of threat, and to run away or to go chase it and see if it's edible. Well, that never really happens. And ignore that I just said that. I was just playing with the cliche. We obviously didn't have to run after our food. So, but whatever. You're sitting in the tree or sitting on the bush. So, yeah, the bushes don't run. They're not hard to catch. Anyway, or the grass, especially. So yeah, why does music happen? Well, music happens because of a psychology, because we love doing pattern recognition. Our brains do, and our brains have preferences when they feel pleased when there's symmetry in pattern, and when patterns have harmonics and all of that stuff. And there's likely reasons for that, just like why do cats purr? Blah 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 blah. I don't feel there's any need for debate. Well, you can go fuck yourself with that stupid argument. It doesn't make any sense. That's all there is on this dumbass fucking idiotic planet, really. That the only reasonable thing to be doing is debating whether that's right or that's wrong. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Those are all really important questions, dumbass. And the whole world sucks because idiots like you say stupid fucking retarded shit like that. The act of debate is, for the most part, ego. Fuck you again, says you. Alright, this doesn't have anything to do with ego when you're debating with your neighbor, whether it's a good idea for him to blow his crappy leaves onto your fucking yard. The only real need, fuck you with your capitals, is the result that can be recreated. Whatever the fuck that means. Nothing. Can't mean anything to a reasonable person. The only real need is the result that can be recreated. What the fuck does that even mean? The science. You don't recreate anything. You discover things. And the thing that we're talking about is, what's the truth? Are you discovering a delusion? Or are you discovering something that's, that's the right road, wrong road? That kind of thing, shithead. Whoever makes the discovery or proves the hypothesis is king. Well, that doesn't mean anything either. I would argue the only reasonable thing to argue is should we reward people who, spend their time studying this stuff and analyzing it and maybe spend years working on it. They're probably entitled to something for that trouble. Instead of watching cartoons or the porn channel, they did some work. They should probably get rewarded for that. And I think, I would argue that they should get rewarded a lot better than somebody kicking a fucking football or doing some other kind of horse shit nonsense. Curling. Curling. Yeah, if they're sitting there tossing bullshit on ice and seeing how, with how perfectly they can throw a stupid bowling ball on ice, maybe we shouldn't pay them quite as much. Fuck you. What mush? I mean, just fucking mush. These people got no teeth at all. I mean, you just got no brain teeth. Alright, slime. Slam 9. Who the fuck is this asshole? Anyway, unrecognizable icon, of course. Oh, I guess it's the Earth. A bad picture of the Earth. Cool. Alright, why don't you actually prove light isn't a wave? No, it's not my job. My job is, you're going to make an assertion that it's doing something. Well, then you have to have something called evidence. And you really don't have any evidence at all, okay? The experiments you cite, the slit experiments most dominantly. There really isn't anything else but some dopey argument about how the only way you can create an on-off pattern is with wave interference. I'm making a simple argument. It's the simplest pattern in the universe. You want to show me a simpler pattern than on and off? On, off, on, off, on, off. Is there a simpler pattern in the universe? And can't it be argued that the simplest patterns in the universe would be the most regular patterns, the ones that would show up the most, like geysers going off and shit? They'd show up all over the fucking place. A regular interval of something happening. You know, it happens in a regular, routine kind of way. Every fucking time does the same fucking thing. Yeah, that's the most common event in the universe. And guess what? Fucking geysers aren't wave interference. The Earth going around the sun is not fucking wave interference. The fact that it has this regular pattern. It's over here, okay, a certain number of days, it's in the same place. And then it's in the same place. And it's in the same place. That's not wave interference, shithead. Alright, so you haven't proven it's a wave. I'm saying compare our two models and see which one works better and which one explains more. You have your wave theory made out of virtual photons, then you have photons that interfere with themselves, a concept that doesn't make any sense at all. You know, and they land in one location. The whole thing is paradoxical and irrational as a concept, where the simple explanation is, and the mathematics demonstrates, it's just an angle change. So let me just explain it one more time. I mean, and this is something Feynman sort of agrees on. Feynman diagrams illustrate the concept pretty clearly, what's really happening. But you just don't care to think about the actual evidence and the actual rational interpretations of what we know physically is happening. So we know this, the physics is that a photon, okay, is traveling basically a straight line path. Now, whether you want to think it's doing some sort of jackass wavy crap, go ahead and think it. Okay, it's not going to do you any good, though, because what's really happening isn't going to be anything wave-like. And what happens is it hits an electron. And what happens to the electron? Well, the electron changes its location in space. The electron already had a disposition, a momentum of some kind. It was jiggling this way, or it was jiggling that way, or it was jiggling this way. And when the photon hits it, the electron's going to gain a new position. Okay, it's not going to travel the path of this momentum the photon has. It's going to travel a different one, a combined one based on the previous experience of this electron. And the electron's going to gain a new position. And then the electron's going to release a photon. Now, it can release the photon with exactly the same momentum in the same direction. Or, more likely, what's going to happen is the electron's going to be traveling this new direction. This is the direction the electron is traveling. This direction. And the whole point of the absorption, it absorbed the photon going this way. That was the momentum added. The electron converts that through acceleration into its new momentum, going in this new direction. And now the electron's traveling this way, and it's going to release the photon. It's going to meet oppressing pressure, essentially, and it's going to release the proton in the same kind of intervals in which it received it. And that frequency might change depending on how strong the field is. It's got to shoot that photon through. And so all you have is an angle change. You have something goes in one direction, it interacts with an electron, and it comes out in another direction. And that would be a very standard process, because this is standardized, this junk is always the same, and these electrons are fundamentally the same mechanism. So if they're in the same condition, in the same field, you can expect the same result. And this is what's in the mathematics, sine theta. I can't remember how they draw sine theta. Some kind of thing like that. You know, some squiggly thingy of some kind. But that's what's in the mathematics. The mathematics has an angle in it. Okay, it doesn't have a wave in it. There's no wave in the formula. There's angles, and there's distances, and there's velocities. There's no waves in the mathematics. Okay. So anyway, you're going after a simplified explanation. It's not a simplified explanation. It's a more complete explanation, one that doesn't rely on woo, on magic, on virtual photons or bent geodesics or some other magical energy source that does magical things. Yeah, it doesn't have any of those. It has actual physics in it. Yes, it's a physics explanation. That doesn't attempt to be a proof. Well, of course it attempts to be a proof. All the proof has to be. The only way you prove the model is correct is showing that it performs exactly like the thing you're modeling. So the model will do exactly what actually happens. It perfectly models the diffraction of light. It perfectly models the function of magnets. I've done my job of showing how the model works. Now, there's actually going to be a simulation in a few days that's going to show the electrons and the protons doing exactly what the physics predicts, the experiments show, and it'll be shown that all you have to do is put my formulas in, okay, of how this momentum is actually achieved and what's actually being transferred, and those little models will do exactly what we see in the sense of what we see in the evidence, what we see in terms of the behavior of protons and electrons, and you'll see the model working perfectly. That's my job, is merely to show this model works. It's complete, it's simple, and it's physical, and it works better than yours. Okay. Instead of wasting 40 minutes calling him a stupid idiot, so that's just a lie, right? I didn't waste 40 minutes doing that. I let the stupid idiot say stupid stuff, and then I pointed out how you don't have any evidence for that. That's not how the experiment actually took place. Why don't you explain, jackass, why the single slit also creates the interference pattern? Where's the extra photon come from? Why does the photon split in two when it hits a single slit? How does it make two waves? Water doesn't do that. I just pointed out the facts, that the facts don't indicate that there's any evidence for this wave theory. It's not consistent. The evidence isn't consistent with the theory. Why don't you explain to me when I have multi-slits, an actual image is projected to the different locations. There's an actual physical image of the light that goes into the slits. The image is actually duplicated in the on-off pattern. There's an on image, an image, an image, an image. How do you make an image with wave interference, with destructive interference, with random photon behavior? Random photon behavior will not project an image. Idiot, asshole, fucktard. Okay, that's what I did. I spent 3.5 milliseconds pointing out that you're a dumbass. Your little idol is a fucking goddamn cartoon character. He's not a fucking physicist. Over and over like someone with Tourette's. Yeah, well, I didn't do that, asshole. So that's just a lie. A stupid, ignorant, retarded lie in the sense that videos can be watched by anybody. They can see the point. You can see me drawn on the fucking board. Clearly, that's not doing, you're an idiot, you're an idiot, you're an idiot. And these dumbasses, that's all they do. They go to debunk somebody and they just mock how they look. They sit there and take clips of them and Photoshop them. You know, they do all kinds of nonsense. Why don't you quickly disprove Maxwell's equations? Why would I disprove the equations? I've already explained what the equations are and the basic concepts. And let's understand, too, they're not really Maxwell's equations, okay? They're Ampere's equations and Gauss's equations and lots of other people's equations. And again, you show me the component in there. You show me one of the equations that has anything called a wave in it. Show me the wave sign, the sign for a wave in the formula. Because it's not going to be there. What there's going to be is an angle. And your assumption that that angle is created by wave interference. That's your assumption. There's lots of explanations for why something changes its direction, jackass, and none of them have to have anything to do with waves interfering. Alright. Why don't you quickly disprove? So again, I don't need to disprove Maxwell's equations. I'll just explain to you that don't you think it's a little bit silly that you have two constants that are completely made up. The permittivity of space and the permeability of space. They're not real constants, asshole. There's no permeability measuring device. There's no such thing. It never happened. They're made up constants. And that those made up constants correlate to the speed of light. Now, don't you think that should give a bell should go off in your fucking head saying, why do you have two constants for one constant? Maybe you're making two forces when there's really only one force. Maybe that you could figure out that, oh, the only reason why the speed of light is cut into two different opposite sort of, permeability and permittivity, two weird opposite constants? Why are two opposite weird constants being used that are basically the same thing as saying frequency and wavelength? You know, they're basically inversions of the same thing. One makes a bigger number as the wavelength shrinks, and one makes a littler number as the wavelength shrinks. So they're just inversions of the same exact thing. They're really just the period of the frequency, right? So that's not an indication to you that maybe there's some kind of flaw in the equation if it has to use gimmicks like that. If you're using frequency and wavelength and playing games by, in a sense, creating inverses of the same thing, that maybe the mathematics is a little bit incomplete. Fuckhead. So I don't need to disprove Maxwell's equations, but Gauss was correct and Ampere was correct. The things that actually prove light is a wave. So question mark. You say they prove it. Where's the proof? It's not a single fucking... Again, show me the wave function. Show me a wave function in a formula. Show me what this thing looks like. Show me the symbol for the wave. It's not there. It's just your assumption that that's a cause for a change in the angular momentum. He even mentions Maxwell's equations in the video. Yes, and I respond to it in the video. You're an amazingly stupid person if you didn't see. That's exactly what took place in the video. I explained that Maxwell's equations, all right, don't have waves in them. And you just gloss over them. No, I point out how, show me the equation that I have to deal with that doesn't have what I say exists. I say distance exists. I say speed exists. I say angles of deflection exist. Those things do exist. Waves don't in terms of how nuclear momentum moves from point A to point B. It doesn't do any waving. All right, so if you think light isn't a wave, yes, then prove Maxwell was wrong. About what? So you're telling me because Maxwell believed in ether, I have to disprove the existence of ether? Even though there's no evidence that Maxwell had to believe in his ether, just because that was his chosen way to perceive what light is, I have to somehow disprove his perception based on no reasoning I can understand. I'm sorry, I don't understand the reasoning. Why do I have to accept the existence of an ether? What shred of evidence do you have for the existence of the ether? You did your Michelson-Morley, it's a bullshit experiment, but you attempt to find this ether, you can't find it. So why should I have to believe in your ghosts? A completely superfluous and unnecessary ghost. You believe the universe needs dominoes or it can't move anything. I'm saying the dominoes have to move anyway, so fuck them. Fuck the dominoes. Just move from here to there. I don't need a bunch of fucking dominoes. Alright. Prove Maxwell was wrong. Well, again, so you're interjecting that the equations are somehow have wave theory or ether in them. There's no ether in Maxwell's equations, asshole. Not a shred of it. Okay, Maxwell believed in ether, but there's no ether in the theory. There's no ether in the mathematics. He couldn't find any way to put it in there. Just like Newton believed in angels. There's no angels in his mathematics, asshole. I don't have to disprove angels because Newton believed in them. Fuck you. You're just such a fucking asshole. Argue what I'm arguing, okay? Argue how there's a single fucking flaw in this model. How it doesn't fucking work. That this two forces plus two kinds of matter plus two kinds of interactions doesn't explain every fucking experiment ever conducted. Go ahead, demonstrate how it doesn't work. And like doesn't satisfy the wave equation. So let's understand there's no wave equation. There's no waves in the wave equation. No waves at all. The equation has a sine theta in it. And they assume, okay, because the sine theta exists, they create a whole bunch of geometry that they throw in that isn't in the equation at all. It's completely separate from the equation. All there is an angle change in the equation. And we agree on the angle change. I'm not disputing that the pattern doesn't exist. I'm not saying the pattern doesn't exist. And so all that's in the equation is the existence of the pattern. That's all. And we agree on that, asshole. So you got nothing. There's no math that proves you right, that proves light's a wave. No math at all, anywhere. Fuck you. Well, let's find out who this asshole is first. People are just such pieces of scum. So nothing here. Research, removed, find. I don't know what all that is. One video. Oh, it's another guy who got a little obsession with Hitler. He wants that on his channel page. It's kind of, guess what? Old news, really. Yes, there's crazy people who get power. Wow, like that. This should surprise us. Considering who was the last asshole elected president of the United States. Ugh. People are so fucking stupid. Alright. Next asshole. 15 or so, or maybe 15. Okay, at 15 or maybe at 15. You say there is no proof of anything happening instantaneously. Yes, that's right. There's no proof. There's no evidence. There's no anything. In fact, there is. I'm sorry, no, there isn't. Einstein's spooky action at a distance. It's not about spooky action at a distance instantaneously. And obviously, Einstein's insulting the whole concept and saying it's bullshit. It smells like shit. It looks like shit. That sounds just like shit to me. Explain this action. Einstein didn't think gravity was instantaneous, idiot. I mean, you people are just so fucking stupid. You don't know any of this physics, and just because some asshole gets up and gives you a little spiel and a little story, oh, it was such a, there was a best of times and the worst of times, and there was such a struggle, and everybody, the human beings wanted to know, and blah, 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 and they do this little storytelling, and you fall for it because you're just fucking dumb, ignorant dupes. Shit. Walt Thornhill is a con artist, okay? He's looks good, he's a good-looking man, he talks nice, you know, wears some stylish clothes, and you're just falling for it. But it's baby fucking talk. He's just going goo goo gaga and goo 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 gaga. It's all crap. There's no physics in his physics. He has no mechanism, he has no evidence, nothing. It makes no fucking sense. Venus flew by the Earth and caused big waves in the water because some fucking asshole said so 4,000 years ago. And you believe it. Because you're dumb fucks. Alright. Has been able to make predictions based on his electric models. Yeah, he's made a lot of predictions, said a lot of things. He's got no evidence for any of it. He's saying the moon is covered with a bunch of, burn marks from electricity. And you buy that crap? Alright, for instance, that certain comets that we just explored, he predicted before the lander arrived that the comet would be rocky and not a dirty snowball as predicted. Well, I guess your whole argument that that's what was predicted is horseshit, because guess what? You can go back to every movie that ever had a comet in it, and guess what? It wasn't just a rocky snowball. But again, the fact that conventional physics is often stupid or wrong doesn't make Walt Thornhill right, you idiot. I mean, fuck. I mean, you can just deduce by lots of rational reasons, okay, that obviously thinking the comet would have the same structure all the way through is idiotic. That's like thinking the Earth is made out of Earth crust, that the dirt and the crust on the Earth, well, the Earth is all the same stuff all the way down. No, not likely. Okay. Comets are big enough that gravity starts moving the dense objects down. It's like rubble, And so it's going to do the same thing a bunch of rocks in a sifter would do. The light stuff will go to the surface. The heavy stuff's going to go to the middle. Well, Wall was right, please. Well, anyway, Wall was right. He wasn't right in any a big way. He wasn't right in the sense that physics did not, all physicists didn't say this is what comets look like. And you can see that in movies. I'm just saying, you can see movies of comets, where they land on the comet because it's going to blow up the Earth or some other kind of bullshit. And clearly some of them have very hard surfaces, and the thing that happens is when they start moving towards the sun, that is, they get exposure to light on their surface, the surface erupts and breaks and lets the pressure out. Nothing inconsistent there. Anyway, Wall was right, but he wasn't right about anything. Look closer at the electric model. I've already looked at it, asshole. And it's an electric model based on a fantasy, a silly fantasy, and an idiotic, even a preposterously idiotic theory that somehow now they're going to cling to plasma, like somehow plasma is going to be an explanation, when plasma is so obvious. You can see plasma. You can reflect light off plasma. Plasma is visible and it radiates light. So if plasma was doing anything between, causing gravity, asshole, we would see it, you stupid fuck. God, people are so fucking dumb. You're so close to the truth. Well, I'm going to block you for that because you're just so fucking deluded. Look again. No, I've already played enough of their silly religion, and it's a silly religion. You're a creationist. Go fuck yourself. Good luck with the coffin nails. Good luck with the Twinkies and Fruit Loops, fat ass. Oh, get what you deserve, which is to be properly run over by a truck. Fuckhead. Dumbasses everywhere. I forgot, it's not good to challenge delusions. You didn't challenge anything. You didn't make any fucking physics argument. Not a single one. You didn't answer any of the questions I've asked, okay? Why in the multi-slit experiment, if images are being projected, how does a wave theory, how does wave interference randomly caused wave interference, like the photon doesn't know where it is and it's random inside the slit, and what angle it's going to go out, it's randomized. How the fuck then does it create images, clear images of what goes through all the slits, a clear image of the whole image, not just the portion that went through the slit, okay? I mean the whole image goes to all those locations. How is it possible with your wave interference theory for that to happen? Did you answer any of my questions? None. Fuck you. You're obviously without any tools or weapons or anything. You just have your fanatical belief, and that's all you've got. Fucking suck on it and die. Just block him. He's not gonna have a hope. Alright, anyway. So I figured we'll play a little bit of this Einstein thing. Now this is disappointing, right, in terms of how the world works. Because, the government did finance PBS for years, and it still does give them some money. So all the stuff they produced was sort of stuff that should be publicly owned. I mean, it shouldn't be some corporation that gets to hide it behind some wall somewhere. And, this is an Einstein documentary, and it's pretty damn old. I mean, made in like 2000. It actually has some truths in it, like where they actually do read some portions out of Einstein's letters that really, point out what a fuckhead he was. Anyway, but you can't get this whole documentary. All you can get the first half, and that's it, in somebody's video where they say subscribed across the screen, all this bullshit. Or you can get this 8-minute clip, but you can't get the whole thing, the whole 2 hours. Which is really fucking irritating. And if you go on, to the PBS station, you have to sign up to some kind of member privilege thing to get it. Just horse shit. Just pointing out. Just fucking horse shit. Ain't the way the world's supposed to work. So anyway, I just wanted to re-emphasize. Okay, so this whole Einstein thing of pretending it matters. Okay, it's like just so silly for people to think this nonsense description has anything to do with anything, in the sense of, okay, I have two events. Now let's just say we have one event. So an event happens. Nuclear bomb goes off. Who cares? Yeah, so we got a big mushroom cloud, blah, 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 blah. Damn, that's annoying. That is way too much glare. Let's see if we get rid of some of that. Oh, that didn't help any. Why is there all that fucking glare? That's a very hopeful light bulb. I hate to say that when it has to go, but it probably has to go. Yeah, I mean, which looks like that's some part of the problem. All right, we'll have to keep that in mind. I'll keep that in mind. There should be an angle I can tilt this thing at. It doesn't matter, right? So there's a fucking nuclear bomb goes off, and so there's a guy here 4 miles away, and there's a guy here 8 miles away, and somehow we're supposed to believe that this event we can change when it happened, based on the fact that it takes light a certain amount of time to get to this guy, and it takes a certain amount of time for the explosion to get to this guy, and because it takes more time to get to him, I'm supposed to believe this happened twice. Once for this guy, and then once for this guy. No, it happened once. Okay, it's not in doubt when it happened. It was one event in the universe, and just because you can be in some jackass location where you don't know about it yet, doesn't mean this changed at all. So this whole thing is such a bunch of crap. Alright, so let's play some of this horseshit video and explain the crap.
Acceleration and gravity are equivalent. What happens while accelerating that reveals something new about gravity?
So let's understand if acceleration and gravity are equivalent. No, they're both forms of acceleration. So this is, where the fuck's the, here it is. They're both forms of acceleration, right? I mean, you can accelerate with a rocket, or you can accelerate with hitting something. So you can accelerate something by just rolling a bowling ball and hitting a bowling pin, right? You can accelerate the bowling pin that way. That's a physical way of accelerating it, all right? Or you can apply heat or a force of some kind, a magnet, and you can accelerate something. You can accelerate another magnet. Or you can have the force of gravity, which is also a force. But obviously these kinds of accelerations are going to be different in the sense that the bowling ball is going to hit one part of the pin. The pin's going to have to, take that momentum and spread it throughout its whole structure. It's going to go through quite a bit of stress to do that. All these atoms are going to be bending differently. There's going to be an indentation. There's going to be compressions. There's going to be all kinds of things that are going to happen to get the job done, so to speak. Just like a rocket engine has to have a, titanium built, rocket funnels, because of all the expansion of the gas, has to take a tremendous amount of force and has to convert force going this way and force going this way into force going that way. Okay, so it takes some time and some work, and things get hot, and lots of shit happens. So all accelerations aren't the same. It's kind of silly to say they're all the same. And gravity does this accelerating not by hitting some one little tiny point on an object. No, gravity hits every single little bit, essentially. I mean, some bits it hits more than others, I would argue, clearly, and it moves those little bits. But, I mean, it's obviously you're spreading the force, so much more efficiently. You can sort of get the idea that when gravity's working on something, it kind of very efficiently compared to other accelerations. And other accelerations would take much more time to get this thing rolling. Because it takes time for the motion to move, but depending on how you're moving. If you have to bang atom against atom, the movement's going to take more time than if I'm banging the force right on the electrons and the protons themselves. You could sort of understand that, right? That's not too challenging. All right. So the very idea that Einstein would want to make an equivalence between all acceleration, that was wrong-headed right from the start. All acceleration isn't the same, and all application of a force will not have the same result. You throw a ball of oatmeal at a ball of oatmeal, you get a completely different transfer of energy than you're going to get if it's a steel ball and a steel ball. And if you throw oatmeal at a steel ball, you get a different result. The acceleration will be incredibly inefficient.
to his rocket ship, Einstein resumed his thought experiment. As the rocket accelerates, a ray of light shining through the window.
So I just wanted to show this just because this is obviously pretty old graphics. And so this is a pretty, this isn't current nonsense. And so I had all these arguments in the past about all these assholes telling me that, Einstein says the light's going to go forward on the rocket ship. That somehow it's going to jump into the future and hit the light clock and make the mirrors go up and it's going to do all this stuff going forward. When, no, that's not what Einstein thought. And this will demonstrate that that's not what Einstein thought. Einstein knew the truth. The light clock is going to do what you expect the light clock to do. That is, the photon's going to travel in a dead straight line, released from one side of the ship. And by the time the photon gets to the other side of the ship, that side of the ship will have moved up. And so therefore the light will hit the lower than expected. Okay, but the light itself traveled dead straight. There was no curved lines anywhere. The light traveled dead straight across the space. It didn't go down, it didn't go up, it didn't do any of that crap. It moved in a dead straight line, and all that changed was your target that you had painted on the wall. Well, the target moved. And that's all that happens. Einstein knew it.
Hits the other side at a lower point than it entered. To a passenger, the light appears to curve.
So, to a passenger, it appears to curve. Now, none of that would appear to curve to a passenger in the sense that a passenger can't have that extreme velocity and have even their eyes work anymore or their brain work anymore. So none of that's going to happen anyway. But, he's saying if you were on the side of the ship or something looking at this experiment, if you had a camera mounted, okay, that could see faster than the speed of light, they could see instantaneously, then yeah, the camera would see the light go down only because it doesn't see the light. It doesn't see the photon, all right? It would just see it land down here. So they showed it like it was a laser beam. So if you did shoot a laser beam, okay, across, would you actually see anything bend? Okay, so this is more to this wave crap, right? You have an end result, which is there's a photon there, that lands in a location. And instead of doing the logical thing and recognizing, well, it can only land in that location either because you moved the surface away or because the thing moved in a straight line. It wouldn't move in this stupid curved line. So the very fact that they drew it as a curved line, there's no reason to think the photon curved. Einstein knew the photon didn't curve. It went straight across. So why would an observer see the light curving? It wouldn't. They would see that this thing, depending on how they saw it, they would see, okay, the surface moving. I mean, that's the only rational vision you could have of where the photon went. But you wouldn't see a curved line. So, but obviously that's a deduction. That's what these people, and this is what the physics is interpreted. They've interpreted the curved line. But that's not what you would see. I mean, at worst, what you'd see is, if you really had good vision, you'd see that when the light leaves, okay, you could see it, and as you're watching it, okay, your perception of it, because the photon is made of a physical thing, your perception of it is that it went this way, and then went this way, and this way, and this way, but it'd still be a straight line. These lines would still be secure. There'd be no bending of the photon in any way. And it would just be your vision, and you would completely be able to understand, oh, I'm seeing it that way because it's moving, it's changing its position, and I'm trying to superimpose. I'm trying to see one thing at one moment, and I can't see one thing at one moment. I mean, I can't see the whole travel of the photon, okay, as one event. I blink my eye, I see the whole event. You can't see the whole event. And if you saw it as what's really happening, you'd see that, oh, what's happening is I'm moving. I'm moving away from the event.
Acceleration can bend light. Then by the equivalence principle, gravity must do the same.
So again, the equivalence principle isn't based on any reasoning at all, except fallacious reasoning that all acceleration is the same, when all acceleration isn't the same. So there is no strict equivalence between these different circumstances. And you wouldn't have the same expectation. So again, the bending doesn't happen. Einstein knew it was a straight line, and yet he allowed this bending thing to be, oh, well, I'm going to see it as a curved line, so therefore I can think about it as the light being bent. And so now I'll make the same thing happen to light when it goes across the earth. So now I'll do the same thing. I'll just bend it into the gravity and say somehow the light is bent when it isn't. I'll curve it when it doesn't. There's no reason to believe it is curved. And then again, the evidence is horrible. There's no evidence of this light bending.
It seemed a crucial clue.
It seemed a crucial mistake in understanding. Again, a horrid mistake to concede that the rocket ship's surface is moving away from the light. You know the light's going straight, and you're only seeing it as bent because of the delusion you have that this target stayed here. The target didn't stay there.
But where would it lead?
Gravity does more than make things fall. That much was clear. But I still had no idea what it was.
And you still don't. You still didn't. And this whole thing is saying you knew what it was or you figured out what it was. It's just nonsense. A bent geodesic is nothing. That's not an explanation of anything. Bending something in 3 dimensions is nonsense.
My office in Prague looked out over an asylum. And there were times when I felt a certain kinship with the inmates. They were the madmen who did not concern themselves with physics.
I don't know if these are actual quotes from interviews or what exactly they get this crap from. But let's move along. Who cares about the asylum? And whether I feel like the crazy one or they were the crazies.
And moved to Zurich to teach at the ETH.
Alright, well I guess this doesn't really have anything else. It's just more of the personal story crap that I just couldn't give a shit about. So this whole idea that time has something to do with the dimensionality of location, right? That somehow they're going to make a comparison and say, okay, we're going to create... We know that a place can be defined, okay, in 3 dimensions. You're somewhere on this axis, you're somewhere on this axis, and you're somewhere on this axis. And that's it. That's your location. So all I have to do is set a number, 10. You're 10 on this axis, you're 5 on that axis, and you're 7 on that axis. There, I've defined where you are. That's a location. And they want to add some other magical axis, whatever. Blah, 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 the time axis. Okay? Like somehow it's somewhere in this space, or it has something to do with this space. It has nothing to do with space. It has nothing to do with the locations. The pixels on the screen are not, on your computer screen, are not being time variant. It's just stupid. There's time. Light takes a certain amount of time to travel distance, and that's it. And there's distance in the universe. There's 3 dimensions in the universe, and you travel distance on those axes, and that's all there is. All right, and all you can do is break a clock. And so the key to this whole thing is the fact that atomic decay, they think, is this great mechanism for detecting, having a clock that's more reliable. Because obviously they're not going to use pendulum clocks to measure, because they know they're going to break. And they can't use sand dials because, they're going to break. And the sundial doesn't work because that's going to break. Everything's going to break. And so they think that inside of a nucleus and its decay rate, that somehow they have a clock that never breaks. When there's perfectly good reasons to understand that clock will break also, because this clock is based on, say, an argument of precession, okay, through space. And if you change how fast it's processing, you're changing how big the circumference of the rotation would be, and you're going to make the rotation longer. So you're going to break the nuclear clock too. The rate at which something will decay will change because you've changed how often it has its interactions take place, because it doesn't make as many circles in a given amount of time. So the faster I make it go, the longer I make the circles, the more circumference I give them, the less cycles the clock will make in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to, just like your mechanical clock is going to slow down, you could argue, if I increase the amount of circumference that has to be traveled in the same, but it can only tick so fast. So I'm going to break the clock, and that's all. It's just another clock to be broken. And the only thing that is reliable is the light photon. The only thing you can't break is the fact that the light photon travels at a constant speed and covers a constant distance, and that's it at that rate of speed, and that's the constant. You can't break that. Okay, so none of these games make any sense. You're not going to break the light. So the simple truth is if you are moving very, very fast, okay, very, very fast, and you shine a flashlight ahead of you, there's no hope that your photons are going to move away from you at the speed of light. They're going to move at the speed of light, okay? And that means that if you're going half the speed of light, this light's only going to go half the speed of light away from you. Those photons can't go any faster away from you. Just a fact. Your flashlight ain't going to work. If I'm going the speed of light, 99.999% of the speed of light, and I turn the flashlight on, there's no hope those photons are going anywhere. I mean, unless you got 1 trillion years to wait, okay, because the amount of speed they're going faster than you is infinitesimally small. And it's going to take trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of years before you'll see that light progress anywhere. Anyway, alright, so that's enough of that crap. But all this is just such bullshit, wooey crap, based on just completely false premises. So they let Einstein do this equivalency thing. They let Heisenberg do this stupid, frickin' idiotic Heisenberg principle that isn't, again, not a real thing. The stupid notion that photons don't know where they are. They don't have a location in space. Just crap. Made up thoughts that they contrive evidence to defend, and the evidence is a contrivance. They have to mold it and shape it and present it a special way to make it make any sense. And so that's where all this nonsense of the storytelling they start doing about their 2-slit experiment, and the fact that, when you have the detectors on, I never did the detector experiment. You never would even try to detect a photon passively because there's no way to do it. So it's all crap. There's simple, rational explanation, and you can choose to be devoted to your religion, but that's all you're doing. You're just like the morons of the past that just kept trying to stop the clock, stop the future from getting here, stop the truth from winning, so we can live in our delusions and plant potatoes and think love will solve all our problems. You're belligerently hostile to the truth, and it's just made obvious by your reactions. You want to live your lies, your nihilism, or your silly fairy tales. Anyway, enough of a video. Fuck you.